Hi, and welcome to episode 4 of L.Artcast, L.Artcast. The L stands for love. Today's guest is Dan Brodie. Hi, Dan.
Hey.
Welcome to the podcast.
Okay, cool. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So a little bio on Dan before we get going. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, won't you? Dan was born in the UK, but grew up in California.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, reading Dan's bio, if you go on Dan's website, which is danbrodie.com, is it? Or
danbrodieartist.com.
Dan Brodie Artist. Anyway, I will put the link in so you can check that out. And then you sort of had a bit of a stint in Prague.
Yeah, I mean, that's in it in a nutshell. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in between. Like, I lived in Wales a little while, but then when we came back here when I was 15, I moved to Telford in Shropshire.
Right.
And then my dad decided he didn't want to live in England. So he moved to France initially.
Okay.
So I would go out and stay with my dad in France. So he sold a business in America and then let the money he got from that, which was not a huge amount of money, but was enough to buy a couple of properties in France that were essentially wrecks and then try and do them up to sell them. And my dad was so fluent in French that they had assumed that he was French and so was I.
Yeah.
And my dad had got a Normandy accent, a Norman accent. So on Bastille Day, one day somebody decided to start talking to me and I had to fess up and say, je n'appelle, I don't speak French. And he was fucking freaked out.
Yeah.
He was just quoi? What the hell?
Yeah.
And he was going to my dad, it appears your son is not even French. And my dad's like, well, I'm not French. Yeah. And it's this weird conversation. All I had to do was say, look him in the eyes, shake their hand, oui, ça va, oui, ça va. And that was it. And because that's all they said to me.
Probably know about the same amount of French as what I know then, which is very little.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's cool. So let's go back a bit if we can. Because we want to sort of get into the nitty gritty with the art scene. And because all the paint heads that listen to this are going to know about that. Right?
Oh yeah, those paint heads.
That's it.
That's what. Yeah.
All 5 people that are listening to
Pigment
this podcast.
bitches.
Pigment bitches.
Yeah.
So growing up in Cali, this is where getting into the comic scene was maybe what got you into sort of maybe art in the first place.
Weirdly, he was a British guy who worked. My dad's businesses basically at the time. He's got either been building houses or he's been running newspapers, like independent little newspapers. And he had a expat newspaper called the British Weekly, and he had a guy come and work for him who was a British dude who was massively into his comics, and he was just he would do his own drawings and stuff, and I was like, oh, those drawings are so cool. Because all I started off was doing was copying, take this and then just draw what you can see, step by step. Every mark, repeat it without tracing it. Don't trace it. Just have the picture of the character you want to draw, and then have a blank piece of paper, and then just copy what you can see.
And did you find that at that time? Because I've tried things like that and found myself getting quite frustrated that what I'm trying to copy is not looking the same. Or were you sort of getting it straight away, or did it take you quite a long time to get to where you needed?
I think I could copy things quite well, but at the same time, also got to be aware of when you're young and dumb, you kind of think that what those things are that you've done an amazing drawing. Do you know what I mean? It's oh my god, it looks just like Wolverine. I wouldn't do any preliminary pencil thing. I would get a marker pen, a thick marker pen,
right?
And do very close to what it was in the comic, and then those are the ones we used to sell in the playground.
How much did a playground Dan Brodie cost in those
sometimes
days?
Upwards of $2.
$2. Yeah.
I had the shittest money clip, gold dollar sign money clip that I kept in my Dickies trousers, and I would sometimes ask to be paid in singles so that I would have a fat wedge, of ones.
Of course, you were literally a cash on the hip kind of guy.
If you have $50 that weekend, which amazingly I'd burn through by Monday.
Yeah.
And I didn't even drink booze then.
Yeah. Well, you were 11, weren't you?
Well, actually, I did drink booze, but I didn't know I drank booze.
Yeah.
So basically, I went to a liquor store and I would buy these wine coolers, and I didn't know what a wine cooler was. I just thought it was a posh soda.
Yeah.
So I would buy it, and the guy in the shop, probably the first time I bought it, he probably gave me a look like, oh, shall I let him? But he's just like, oh, because I got on with him. We used to talk about comic books.
Yeah.
He's like a Korean guy who run like a young Korean guy who ran this like liquor store near my house. And what I thought was a sophisticated taste to it. Well, I didn't realize that was just booze.
Yeah.
Like I just thought, oh, this is the best.
Did you feel pissed?
Because I would only have like one or two.
Yeah.
In many respects, I was on one hand, some of the stuff I got up to was like bad behavior and like antisocial, whatever. But on the other hand, some things that they taught me in school, I took really to heart. Like when they were like, you shouldn't smoke and you shouldn't drink. I was like, yeah, you fucking shouldn't smoke, you shouldn't drink.
Yeah.
I was almost, I mean, straight edge didn't exist, but I was almost like a straight edge kid.
So at that time, so you're selling, you're sort of making $2 a drawing. So is that a point where you thought, art, this is art? Did you know you were doing art at the time, or were you just sort of literally just...
When we had like a careers thing, or when they'd have the teacher say, you know, what do you want to do when you grow up and all this sort of stuff, because that was getting to that stage of think about your future and what you want to do, you know. And I'd say like, oh, I want to be either an artist or a film director.
Right, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I want to either make paintings or make movies or both. Because I never answered astronaut, I never answered bus driver or train driver or anything that you would think a kid might. You know what? This is the first time I thought about that. Like, I just answered honestly what I thought I wanted to do when I got older.
Was the area that you were living in California, was that quite an arty place?
Probably always was a little bit. And I think now it's becoming... I mean, we went back there a few years ago, me and Lauren, and it had been gentrified quite heavily. And now, if you talk about Santa Monica, people are just, oh, it's really posh. And to be honest, it is. Like, it is posh. But I grew up in Pico neighborhood, which is like the tough bit of Santa Monica. But even Pico neighborhood now has like a fantastic like gallery complex in the middle of it.
Yeah.
You could argue that sometimes galleries appear because there's a bunch of money around. Yeah. Like, so they have like a place, you know, they can sell into like people who have got the disposable income to buy art, you know, and big nice white walls to put them on. Yeah. And, you know, if you, or room for a sculpture, I don't know. When the Santa Monica High School had this fantastic art department, and when we did a tour of Santa Monica, and I moved when I was 15 to England, and I was going to start Santa Monica High School the following September, and I was like already basically enrolled by, de facto enrolled, because that's the school system said, right, you're going to Santa Monica High School. We had a tour of it, and I was so excited about doing art, like I was going to, because high school, you have this almost element of like starting to choose your subjects, starting to say, this is my specialism and stuff. And and this is a thing, I say film director, I also thought I could play professionally in the NFL.
Okay, yeah.
So I was going to do art, I was going to do the art class there, and I was going to try and get on the high school football team, American football team. Yeah.
Having looked at your paintings over the last few days, and like I said to you before, you paint in a way in which I really like. Thick paint, oil paint mostly, I imagine. Very colourful. We've got a little bit of sort of drip coming in, and like I say, like the underpainting. You know, like say for example, Cop. You've got in some parts of Cop, you've got what I assume to be like maybe spray paint, a grid of dots. Yeah, just at the very bottom on the right hand side.
It's funny that you bring that up actually, because there was a time where I just stopped doing it, and I'd seen a lot of Sigmar Polk paintings where he'd done like some kind of like stencily bits underneath and then painted over the top, and I was getting that influence from Sigmar Polk, who obviously German painter that I admire, and I was starting to bring that in to stuff, and I started bringing that in actually probably fairly early on, and I have like stencil spray paint stuff underneath layers of my student work, and then I'd have oil paint go over the top of it, and it worked, and I liked it, and I started the dots thing was quite fun because I could have that almost like print look to it, like, and it reverts back to some of that comic book stuff and that pop stuff. And if you look at Liechtenstein and stuff, so you've just got that kind of that print dot kind of bit where it's like slightly off center, and you get that like that shadow, and sometimes in 3D stuff as well. So you've got like the two images in in the two different colours, like the green and red. And like, but anyway,
yeah,
it's funny that you bring it up. So the point I was making really is, I was looking at those dots the other day and thinking, there's some stuff I want to bring some dots back into some of those things. So I think, I don't say that I think, oh, I'll never do that again. I think a more case of like, I'll do that sort of thing with, in terms of the abstract elements of my paintings. Those are like tools that I will probably return to and like use again, like if I'm feeling it's appropriate for the work I'm doing, you know. So there's some work I'm working on at the moment where I might do like some stencil stuff, like spray paint-y bits as part of a large figurative oil painting. And it's going to make, I know I've already planned the painting, I already know what it looks like, but I don't really make a lot of sketches.
Just quickly going back to the exhibition that we've got in the salon at the moment. One of the girls who works there was absolutely fascinated by it all, and she's sort of saying, I've never really been into art. I keep catching her looking at these paintings like properly, you know, like standing gazing at the paintings, and it was, what has been really nice is to sort of see like somebody really engage in for the first time, you know? And I think what your painting does or can do is there is quite a lot going on under the surface. So I don't know if I said this to you before, but when I first saw your paintings online, I instantly liked them. But when I actually saw them in person, I thought, my God, these are nothing like what I thought I was looking at before.
Yeah.
And now I look at them and think, oh, there's so much going on. And each time I look at them, I'm seeing something different. You know, and like you say, there's that sort of pop art element in some of them, not all of them, but that sort of seems to be sitting there in the background, and then you're building on top of that, and maybe there's a little bit of street art going in on top of that, and then you've got that lovely thick kind of oil, sort of gestural painting, and then you've got your figurative.
Well, that's what I enjoy. I mean, I really enjoy the physical act of painting anyway, but I like, so there's a whole other thing there to be talked about. But in terms of my process, there's like an editing, like it's almost editing. So I put something, marks on, I'll put something in, and then I'll obliterate part of it. Like I went through a phase, and I'm not like, this is like the polka dots. They might come back, but I used to paint with some very aggressive, or I used to write text, very aggressive graffiti ink that will bleed through oil paints, because it's specifically made to be bleed through people covering up graffiti. Yeah, and it's like, and obviously I wouldn't put it on primed canvas. I always put it on like but it will even bleed through to the back of the canvas. Like, do you mean? And it's like, so that stuff's fun because I'll do some text, obliterate some of the text because I need to put something else on, and I'll have an idea what I want to be in the center, you know, what I'm composing and what I'm putting in the middle. But it means that when I start to paint the rest of the canvas, there'll be bits I choose to leave so you can see it, and some stuff I'll try and obliterate it and let it bleed through and let it see if it'll bleed through. So even when I'm not using text, I have used those markers just to make shapes. Yeah. And to put shapes underneath the paint, and then see what bleeds through, and then see what I edit out and see what I obliterate completely. You know, stuff where I put really thick layers on and it ain't coming through it because there's just too much paint there for it to work through.
I mean, we're sitting in your studio now. I'm looking at maybe 3 paintings now that you're sort of working on, I think, for another exhibition. Yeah. I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, right, they're Dan Brodie's. That's for sure. Do you think there's something that's sort of like coming through all of your paintings, or do you see each one as like being completely different? Because, you know, I suppose like if you're the person who's, you know, come to see your art, they're recognising a painting as a Dan Brodie, and it, you know, I think like they seem quite unmistakable. Do you feel like they look completely different, or is there like a thread there?
Well, I think there's a yes and no. Well, what I would say is there's a kind of ongoing, growing like collection. There are different collections that belong to different. There's different kind of themes that have started at different times but continued like parallel to one another. Right. And then other than they bled into each other. There's been, for example, I did a bunch of paintings that were based on my childhood misremembering, or rather my honest memories of childhood in Southern California, particularly before we lived in LA, when we lived in the mountains in Central California.
Yeah.
And
in the Pines.
Yeah, so there's a series of paintings called In the Pines. Yeah. And so they always have the prefix In the Pines, and then there'll be a number, and then there'll be the title of that particular episode. Yeah. So there's like the bear ones, which you've seen, which are probably all part of In the Pines to some extent. Yeah. And then you've got a few other ones that actually it's been kind of a fairly successful set of paintings, because some of those have been purchased. Yeah. And they're not, like, I can't show them because they're gone to their homes. But yeah, there's one of a raccoon stealing bread. Right. So it's funny because those In the Pines one will have human figures in them, but often will have animals in them. There's one that's called The Greatest of All Time, and The Greatest of All Time is a picture of a goat, but like a mountain goat, like a ram, and that sold. But that was like a crossover between In the Pines and then a new series of paintings that are all like to do with like magical thinking and the supernatural. Came from some of those like occult style imagery.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
And obviously, but it was a mountain goat, the sort of mountain goat you might see in the mountains of California, and against a fantastic blue sky with a golden sunset in its face, and it was just like, yeah, that could easily be In the Pines.
I don't think we can let this bit go without you sort of talking about the shuttle.
Yeah, so obviously,
I mean, it's a fascinating
one
story.
of the paintings is a massive painting, like. What is it, like it must be about 6 foot tall or something. Yeah. But like it's got a bear in the mountains, essentially in the pines, I guess. And it's got a space shuttle flying above it. And this is based on when I was a little kid and they redirected the space shuttle because they couldn't land at Cape Canaveral in Florida, which meant they flew over the flight path to re-enter and come in was above our house. So everybody was outside their houses because everybody knew the space shuttle was coming over, like, which was like, even then, even that young, when I was about 6, 7, I thought, it's the space shuttle. I mean, that's so cool. Like, it's the coolest thing. Like, my mum would explain it to me, but I already knew. Like,
what I wanted to ask you about that after you said was, were you seeing it low, or were you actually seeing it come through the atmosphere and come in?
Didn't see it re-enter or anything like that. We just saw it coming in, and it was just like, that's the space shuttle. And it's just like, and that is ace. Like, and obviously, I've imagined this painting. You know, if we're watching the space shuttle come in, then somewhere like a bear is going, what the fuck, like, and dropping his fish. So I've made it so the bear is kind of comically dropping his fish, like, you know, because he's like, what is that? Because sonic booms are a thing. Like when you get like anything coming particularly fast, then you get this sonic boom. Well, like rocket re-entry or like space shuttle re-entry makes a rocket boom. Sonic boom, I think.
The behind the shuttle painting that you've done is really interesting, where you've got kind of like a burst, isn't it, of flame or but you've got that real interesting way that you've put the blue into it, which kind of makes it look not like an explosion but like a burst, almost like a sonic boom sort of thing.
Well, I suppose, I mean, on some level it probably is. I just think, you know, when I do, there's some elements of there being, in terms of my like process of making paintings, there's an element of like I said, edit stuff out. So I'll put some marks on that I enjoy, and then I'll decide that I like the mark, so I'll leave it in and paint around it. And like, so you've got that drip bit that comes off below the space shuttle, which almost forms like a light. I thought it looked a little bit reminiscent of lightning or whatever. Yeah. And I was just like left it in because I really just enjoyed that bit of paint. So this is where some of the abstract elements come into my work, because there's just bits of paint that I'll like. If I like it, the rule is, if it works, leave it. Yeah. Yeah, and if you like that bit of paint, leave that bit of paint, regardless of what scene I'm painting. If I'm making it for myself, and there's like a little bit of dripped paint that I enjoy, then I'm leaving the drip in, like, because it's part of it. Like, and I think other people will enjoy it as well. Yeah, leaving paint in that you like, that you enjoy. Yeah, that's a big part of the process. It's absolutely, and obliterating stuff that you don't like. You know, that's got to go. You know, there's bits of this painting that you're looking at, like, you know, in front of you. There's bits there where there's already been some obliteration. There's already going to be some stuff that I think I like that, leave that, and there'll be more things that happen in that painting.
Can I just tell you what I'm loving so far? Because I know this is probably far from finished, but that's my pencil. So the tree line at the top, I love the colour, the outline of that. And I was saying to someone earlier about how much I love the sort of the reddy orange outlines of the pines in the bear and the shuttle. But just for some reason, I suppose this is when you're kind of getting really geeky about painting. I'm loving this here and these yellow gestures here.
Yeah, so down near the bottom of the canvas there's some yellow bits that were just essentially like brush cleaning. From when I was making probably these ones. Sometimes you get the same colours come in because I've got 2 or 3 canvases on the go at the same time. One will be the focus of my attention and the other canvases are getting the runoff, essentially. So I've got I'll mix a colour and I've got a bunch of
Is that what's happening here then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we've got another canvas here, haven't we? And it's got a lot of gestures on it.
Yeah.
But it's not...
Nothing's formed yet.
Nothing's going on there yet, really.
Nothing's forming yet.
So on the left of me, so in front of me, I've got a portrait of... Is this an imagined portrait you've got?
Yeah, I use, in terms of visual sources, I'll use magazines to find faces just to get the structure of the face right.
So there we've got something coming together really nicely, deep in colour, blues, purples, lighter shades, and then we've got yellow sort of gestures at the bottom of maybe some poppies. And then on this side we've got the same colours, but are you literally sort of taking your brush from this and then just making marks on here?
Yeah.
And then eventually this will become something?
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Yeah, so essentially, I actually managed to... I started doing this when I was at uni. I'd have a couple canvases on the go, and I'd start to have, work on a big canvas I knew what I was doing with it, and then I had another small canvas that I didn't know much what was happening with it, but it was becoming something I was cleaning my brushes on. And actually, weirdly, I was sketching stuff on that smaller canvas that related to what was on the bigger canvas, and it was becoming almost like a sketch pad, which is one thing that I don't use enough. But I had this other painting going, and I sold that painting at my graduation, straight off the bat, and there was more than one person interested in it, and it felt weird. I sold the other painting as well, by the way, the big painting, but I sold that other painting for not a lot. That massive painting I sold for not a lot of money, and that little painting I sold for when I was a starving student. 3 figures. Yeah. Which at that time, coming straight out of uni, I had no money, so that was so handy. Yeah. And more than one person wanted it, and had to argue over who was going to get it. And they were art tutors at the college, so they were teachers who were beefing over who was going to get it.
Funnily enough, you should say they were teachers, because in my mind then I was just thinking, it would be great for a teacher to say, when you're painting and you want to clean your brush, have another canvas handy, and then you never know what's going to come from it. Yeah. And I think this is such a great idea.
I'd never thought about how. I never thought about how whether anybody else did that. I just assumed people did the same thing. I don't know. I do, but quite often there'll be a primary canvas and a second canvas, and that second canvas is a sounding board, but also I'm literally cleaning my brush on it. Yeah.
I can tell you now, I'm going to start doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's an awesome idea.
Yeah, because absolutely, and
this is creating something much more abstract at the beginning of it as well. Yeah, isn't it,
and it gives you a ground. Yeah. That you build on, and it's and it starts to make itself. Yeah. And I'm intrigued actually that. I just never thought about. You don't think enough about your own practice.
No, but that's the good thing. I mean, I think that's what's interesting about this is this isn't being thought about. This is just literally happening. It's like you're turning and you're doing that, and that's it. And sometimes you think that's really where you want to get to with art, isn't it? To sort of the process sometimes gets in the way, the thinking gets in the way. So whereas you're thinking this, and maybe sometimes you'll get into a bit where you're overthinking the portrait, when you're turning to this is just literally happening in the moment, and you're not even thinking about it. Yeah. I mean, that's quite sort of I don't know, there's something going on there, isn't there?
Yeah. But it's funny because on these 2 smaller canvases, which must be 60 centimetres by 60 centimetres, that are, to my left, you've got a portrait of a man and a portrait of a lady. Neither of those have got much left from their original, the original layers. But you can see on the portrait of the man that there are a lot more of those brush marks remaining. Yeah. That were from just playing with the paint that was going on to another. I can't remember what painting I was doing. at the time, because these canvases have been sat absorbing brush marks for probably a year and a half.
Okay.
They like before anything got done on them.
Yeah.
So I was probably making my I think I know what painting I was first working on it, which was Shatner's Bassoon, which is like the picture of William Shatner with a ski mask on and a handgun in his hand.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, which isn't in the matinee show,
No.
but it is on display here in Burn Street Studios. But basically, I was making that painting, and these were going to be companion pieces initially for that painting. And it was going to be 2 different characters from that same episode of Columbo. But that's taken from it. Because another thing, I fucking love Columbo.
Yeah.
Like, I watched way too much. And that's to make only one painting of Columbo, where I've used a Columbo still for a source material, is like, it's amazing I haven't done more, because I went through a phase of like just watching Columbo.
I think I'll be doing a commission here. I feel like a commission coming on because my other half loves Columbo.
Oh, right.
I mean, I'm a fan, but like she is like super fan.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Columbo's. I just love it.
I mean, this is just a quick aside, really. But I had a painting that I when I started painting, I did a lot of paintings, and then I thought about one for a long time, and it was in the back of my mind. Then I started doing it, and I spent months. I haven't even finished it, but I spent months and months on it, and didn't do another thing, and I just got totally fed up with it.
Yeah.
And then Alex, who was on a previous podcast, said, "Oh, have you got anything else on the go?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, maybe you should just paint other things as well." And that changed my practice overnight.
Yeah, no, absolutely sage advice. That I think that's like, again, something that maybe comes naturally. I've done things. Sometimes there's a lot of bikes in the studio, which you probably can't, which we obviously the listener cannot see, but there's a shit ton of bikes in our big studio, and basically sometimes I need to fix a bike for a bit.
So is that what you do to kind of take your mind off of what you're doing?
Oh, I'll do a bunch of stuff. I've got a bunch of things, like, you know.
So how much time typically do you spend in the studio? Or would you like to? I mean, do you actually spend the amount of time that you want to be here, or is?
No, I would say I'd spend more time here if I could.
Yeah.
I think the thing about this is that on social media, and obviously in terms of your profile as an artist, you want to, like, you know, I am professionalized, but I don't. If I'm not going to pretend, you know, on social media you can frame yourself as like, look, I'm an artist and this is all I do.
Yeah.
But I do a bunch of other stuff, and actually, the thing is, you have to, like, I have to eat, so I have to have a day job.
Yeah.
Like, and I sell paintings, and I've sold a few paintings over the last couple of years that made me feel like I'm going in the right direction in terms of my commercial success.
Yeah.
Because I'm selling paintings more regularly.
Yeah.
I'm selling them for more money, and so the price is going in the right direction. The frequency of the sales is going in the right direction, but it's no way near enough to, like, live off.
No.
And unless you then make money from art a different way, i.e. you teach it, or you run projects with people. Like, I know that some people's art practice means that they can do, like, stuff where they become like a resident artist somewhere or whatever. But my practice is kind of studio based practice, and I make paintings that you put on the wall. And so it means that, like, unless I'm selling paintings or prints of those paintings or something to do with the paintings, I have to have a day job. So I have a day job, and I work in procurement. I buy things for a living. You know, I have a desk job in an office, and it's like, so it's it's like a Jekyll and Hyde existence. I've got to eat, and so I'm not from although I talk about living in LA and stuff like that, I don't come from a wealthy background at all. Like, you know, we never had any money. We, you know, for a long time, when we lived in the mountains, we had to live in a tent for a little while because we had to, like, rent our house out to somebody. Like, so we went and literally lived in a tent and for a few months until they were ready to move out of our house. So we, you know, literally had food stolen by raccoons. Like, not on a camping trip. Yeah. Like in a comic way, but our food we need to eat. So it's like, you know, we've been kind of always keeping the wolf in the door, you know. So it's sort of like, and when we lived in LA, when we lived in Santa Monica, he said, "Oh, I lived in Santa Monica." Like, "Oh my God, so glamorous!" Like, and you met Chili Peppers and did all this cool stuff. And it's like, yeah, but I lived in the Pico neighborhood and saw drive-by shootings outside my house, you know. And a friend of mine got killed in a drive-by shooting. I've been shot at in a drive-by shooting. Like, I've seen, like, people pull guns on people, and I've seen things, you know, I've seen the worst thing I've seen growing up. I saw somebody on the freeway in LA fall out of the driver's side of a moving van. He fell out of it with a hole in his chest. Right. A gunshot hole in his chest onto the freeway, like with cars coming. Yeah. Yeah. My dad pulled over on the Central Reservation, said, "Don't look back, stay in the car," and he walked back to see if he could help, I guess, or see what was going on. Yeah. I've never heard him tell me what happened. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's probably fucking horrific. Yeah. Yeah. And you can imagine it. Yeah. It's like, and it's stuff like that.
That's like one of those folk horror stories, isn't it? You know, but for real. Yeah. You know, like when they say, you know, don't get out of the car, and you know, you don't
look back.
Don't look back, and there's like some guy standing on the
and then he's banging the severed head on the bonnet.
I mean, that's like a real one of them.
Yeah, no, it's like but yeah. So we've seen some pretty wild stuff, like, and that's informed my imagination. Yeah, that's become something that I enjoy, like in my own work. Like I'm not too worried. Like I'm writing these stories in these paintings, but like, they don't need to be 100% right, because let's just assume. Like,
I mean, like, anybody that goes to look at them doesn't perhaps know the history of it anyway, and they're going to make up their own story, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. And I haven't done a painting of a guy falling out of a van with a hole in his chest yet. Yeah. But, like, you know, I don't know if I'll ever will do. But like these.
That's the first thing I did think when you said that. Actually, where is that painting?
Yeah, no, but that's the thing. Like, that hasn't made it. That made the cut yet. Yeah. But like, I don't want to be so on the nose with some of this stuff. Yeah. I want to almost to have like an uncanny feeling in the work about like an urban tension, especially the fact that I've grown up in the mountains and then spent a lot of time in the city. So I've got these two different competing cultures. Like, you know, like the people who lived in the mountains were super, I didn't realize at the time, but they were basically super fucking racist. Yeah. And like, and they were like, you know, I remember my best friend, one of my best friends there, when I first moved there, Jesse, his name was, and like, he was a cool kid, but he was influenced by his dad. You know, his dad was like, I remember Jesse said to me, "Oh, you should never go to LA." And I was like, "Oh, why is that?" He goes, "My dad says LA is full of N-words, and N-words carry knives, right?" Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, well," and I didn't know what that was, right? So I was like, I didn't know the word. So I was just like, I didn't know what it meant. I was just like, well, I'll keep an eye out. Yeah. You know, if I'm in LA, I'll try and avoid the N-words. Yeah. Well, because kids just are so easily to be influenced. You know? So he's picking it off his dad. And then eventually moved to LA. And then obviously all my new friends were either black or Hispanic, and some white kids as well. Like, but yeah, it's like, and it's funny because my new Mexican American friends were just like, because their parents or grandparents would speak Spanish. Yeah. They were always speaking English because, you know, they're Californians basically, and actually, a lot of Mexican people in California have been there for generations because it was part of Mexico once anyway. So all my new friends used the N-word, but not in that racist way. Yeah. They were like calling each other N-word and calling me N-word. Yeah. Right? Okay. And to the point where, you know, I was like, well, this is different, and it was said differently. Yeah. Yeah. So it was like completely, and I was like, it was a different experience. So there's this tension between that rural boy from the woods and like, started to figure out what it meant. Yeah. And I kind of got it, and I was like, it's not for me to say. Yeah, yeah. So I ain't saying it. Yeah. And I made a decision I was fairly perceptive in that respect. Yeah. But I picked up on that, and I was like, I'm not saying it. You know, I figured out what it was, and I was like, okay, so I'm going to leave that then. Yeah. It's not for me to say. I'm almost interested in that and trying to work that into my work a bit, but I've kept it fairly subtle so far, to be honest. It's not been that overt. A lot of my work, I've always had this shyness about being too on the nose with stuff, and I don't want to make like morality play paintings. Yeah. And I have, when I've attempted to do a painting that was kind of about a particular political subject, it was not that successful a painting. You know, it was misread easily for a start, so that was a problem, and I could see why. Yeah. Because it's like, and I was thinking about writing an essay about what's wrong with this painting that I'm like describing almost a list of why this painting doesn't work, what it was meant to do, and how it's a failure. But by the way, it's still for sale.
Yeah. Oh right. Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah. If you want it for the right price, it's,
like
it's more than $2.
I've still got it on Saatchi.com, Saatchi Art. It's
Yeah.
still on there. A bad photo of it.
Yeah.
That I took on my phone. You know, like, I think I listed it for like $2,000 or something.
Yeah.
Like, just because if you want to buy it for $2,000, that's fine. It's a massive painting, but it's like I went all the way through the painting, knowing there was problems with it visually, and also how it would be interpreted, and
Did you do the essay or not?
No, I want to do it because I've got the website and I need to add a blog bit to it. And one of the things I'd like to do for the blog is do an essay about that painting and about like dissecting it. Firstly, what's right with it, what's wrong with it, what was I trying to do, how it's failed, how it can be misread and easily misread, and why it's right that it's been read the way it's been read.
Yeah.
Like, because, like, you know, just an example, it's got female nudity in it, but no male nudity in it. Like, and I guess the point I was trying to make was about kind of macho cultures and pornography and things like that, and like how they kind of like objectify women and things, but also give the woman a little bit of agency because she's the only figure in the painting that's looking directly at the viewer. But actually what it looks like is you're a male artist who did a lady with her tits out on it, and actually, like, and you just look like you're objectifying this woman yourself as the artist, and it's like, yeah, shit, it fucking does look that way. Like, and difficult, because if you want people to read the painting a certain way, then you've got to make it so they can read it a certain way. Like, you can't like make it easy for them to interpret it differently.
That's interesting.
So it's a failure in that sense, because immediately, and it was meant to be a painting.
You know, when you finished it though, you knew it was a failure, or because I mean, like,
it was a bit like the bridge over the River Kwai.
Yeah.
Like, I just carried on.
Yeah.
I knew it was a failure before I finished it, but I just carried on. I didn't paint over it. I just finished the painting, and then exhibited it once in a show I did, and then put it away quietly.
But there's plenty of throughout art history. There's plenty of paintings of naked women. I mean, like hundreds of thousands of it.
Yeah, but I think you have to think about, like, you know, I'm not a historical figure. I live like now, and know the things I know now. So obviously, I've got to think about how because look, some of those amazing works of art were sold essentially as porn. Yeah, like those paintings were sold to people who wanted to have a wank over it. Right. Like, do you know what I mean? Like that. So they were objectifying female form. Do you know what I mean? They were basically dirty pictures for the lads. Just that the lads just had to be mega rich landowners. Yeah, and it was a way of discreetly having some nudies in your house. Like, do you know what I mean? It was like, if you were rich enough to have.
So if you were rich, it was acceptable to do.
Well, because it was art, you see. Yeah. So you can get like a big painting of, the most comical version of it is the full Madonna with the big boobies, which is in LOLO. Yeah. But like, jokes aside, that's kind of what they were doing. Is like, so I've done my full Madonna with the big boobies painting, and it's like, and it doesn't work. Yeah. And it's just like, but I carried on like an idiot. But like, I just wanted to finish the painting thinking, like, one of my worst parts of my personality is I'm stubborn, is that I kind of already knew there was problems with it, and I was like, well, if I finish the painting, then it resolve itself. Like, it'd be able to read the painting and I can explain what it's about. Yeah. But I shouldn't need to explain what it's about. The whole point of I try not to explain my paintings. I like people to get, first of all, their own conclusions from them. That's actually part of the way I make paintings, is that they can be read in a number of different ways, so that people can look at it and form their own stuff. I love when people come up to me with some theory about what I was trying to get at, and I indulge them, because actually I haven't got a problem with people coming up with their own theories. I enjoy that. Like, and they're kind of part of the point of making it, is that people come up with their own ideas of what I'm trying to do, and then when they repeat it back to me, that's great. That's we're interacting, and that's the point of me making the work. Yeah. I don't know. It's just a painting that I kind of did. It's big. I kind of like. There's elements of it I still like today. Yeah. Like little technical elements that I enjoy when I look at it. The hand of the woman is fucking shit, because it's my own hand, because I didn't have her hand in the right position, so I use my own hand as a guide. But I have a man's hand. Yeah. Like, so she has a man's hand. Like, yeah. So it's like, it looks like a man's hand. Yeah. It doesn't look like a female hand. It's like, and I thought, well, it's not going to matter, because it's just a hand. I just need a hand. And it's like, no, it's like got all the knobbly bits. Like, she's been like working on bikes by the looks of it. Yeah. So it's like, or working construction or factories.
You've brought up hands now, and actually Bill popped in to help me hang up those Dan Brodie things in the window, and I don't know if you've noticed his hands, but he's got extremely youthful looking hands for a man of his age. Have you ever noticed that?
Well, he's got a painting of his hands in his attic.
Well, there you go then. Yeah, that explains it. Right, well, I think that's probably a good place to kind of almost wrap up, but I sent you that message earlier about like that whole kind of one cool thing. If you have thought of something.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because there's lots of things on there. There's something that I keep like telling people to go check out, which I don't think anybody checks out. There's a TV show by Mike Judge called On the Tour Bus.
Right.
And it's an animated documentary series. And it's done 2 seasons of it so far that I'm aware of. Right, and you can watch it on Sky Comedy, I think, on demand or whatever. And there must be other ways of streaming it. Like, I don't know. Because we watch it on Sky Comedy, that's where we'll watch it. And it is fucking amazing. Because he did one season that was all on, like, country and western, and one that was all on funk.
Right.
And he does essentially a story of those genres, but told through some key figures and tales from the tour bus and stuff that they did, biographical stuff, showing as many living people who remain that can to tell the stories, and then obviously having to refer sometimes to the versions of people who are no longer with us.
Yeah.
But like, it's got some incredible stuff on it. That it's worth watching just to see Bootsy Collins do an impression of James Brown.
Okay.
Because Bootsy Collins recounts when they toured with James Brown as their backing, when Bootsy Collins, the rubber band, or who, as they were eventually be called, were working with James Brown or his backing band. There's some fantastic stories about real things that apparently went down on these tour buses.
Okay.
And it's amazing. Mike Judge, who's done a bunch of really good stuff. King of the Hill. I'm a big fan of King of the Hill.
Okay, so this is animated as well, yeah.
Animated documentary.
So it's called
Tales from the Tour Bus.
Tales from the Tour Bus, Mike Judge, and possibly on Sky.
It's probably on Sky Comedy on demand. Yeah. If you want to go see an exhibition in the Tate right now, then I would recommend. And I haven't been able to go because I've got no money. But Paul Orego has got an exhibition on the Tate.
Okay.
And that's amazing. Like, Paul Rega's one of my big influences on my work, so I would check that out.
Good. I'm glad you dropped that in. Yeah.
Paul Orego, and then so 3 things really. What was the other thing? Really like listening to The Comet's Coming.
Okay.
The band, they do like jazz. It's a jazz. They're jazz, but they do like electronic elements as well, and they're just fucking really good. I've seen them live.
And what are they called?
The Comet is Coming.
The Comet is Coming. Go on then. Go on, pick one. Pick one of those 3.
What? What are you talking about?
Just one, go on.
Do all of those 3.
Yeah, they'll go in, yeah.
No, okay, so if you were... Oh my God. Okay, just listen to The Comet's Coming, they're amazing.
There you go then.
Yeah.
Comet is Coming, yeah.
That's unfair to admit, let's power it down to 1. That's ridiculous.
That's what it's called, one cool thing.
Yeah, okay, if that's probably the coolest thing. Yeah. In terms of the cool kids.
Cool things.
Yeah, that's the coolest.
Jazz, cool, yeah.
Well, jazz has got you got to check out the jazz scene, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So Dan Brodie, thanks very much. Dan Brodie is currently exhibiting at Hatbox Salon.
Yeah.
In Northampton. All are welcome, and the exhibition is called Matinee. And I can really recommend you come and see it. It is brilliant. Okay, guys, so I'll wrap this up now by saying thanks for listening, and obviously you would know by now you can really help this podcast by kind of liking, sharing, telling people about it, and following us as well. So yeah, thanks a lot, and thanks Dan.
Cheers. Yeah, no worries. Thank you.